is something called shatavari, dried ginger again, which is sweetener also. Very good as an antiviral, in fact. It has to go for size reduction, and depending on what is the next process, the size is reduced into either a powder or something like a coarse powder. What we are processing here is something called Amlaka Rasayana, and Amlaka Rasayana is basically made out of gooseberries. Now I'd like to show you what exactly a Leyam is. The ladies here are rolling today is Kanchanara Kukudu. Now again, these are hand-rolled pills. Okay, now same thing is also punchable in the machine and you can tablet it. But there are many physicians who even today believe that a hand-rolled pill is the best in terms of efficacy.
Here with Rajesh, Director Production of this Advaidya Shala. Rajesh, welcome to Digital Wellness. Thank you so much for talking to Digital Wellness. I saw that this is the raw material section, and in any manufacturing processing, it's always good to start with the raw materials. In Ayurveda, what are the typical raw materials that you typically use, and if you can take us through on what are your sources, typical sources that you have especially for your raw materials?
Thank you for having me on the show. Actually, very interesting question. There are a huge number of herbs that are used in Ayurveda. In fact, there is it's a documented fact in the text that nothing goes waste, nothing in nature goes waste, and this has been said by Charaka also in his text. So we use raw materials which come from various places in India. India is blessed with 13 agroclimatic zones, and we are very, very rich in our bounty of nature and natural stuff. So with all of this, I think we get our raw materials from various places, and of course, as you know, Ayurveda is not only about just the herbal resources. There are also a lot of animal produce which is actually used in Ayurveda. So these come from various places in India, all the way from the sub-Himalayan range to Kanyakumari, and there are certain herbs which are specifically grown in certain areas of the country, and they are best sourced from there. So whether it's a root, bark, leaf, fruit, these are the various kinds of things that we use, and all of these come from various places in India. So our raw material, and thanks to our age, we have been able to source the best of the raw materials from various places, and we try and get the best quality in the right season, which is also important.
Next question I have is, because you're of course one of the oldest known Ayurvedic manufacturing centers in Karnataka, so there may be certain repetitive ones that you would get, but do you also do R&D to get newer sources and newer inclusion in your raw materials?
Well, yes, actually sourcing of raw material has become a challenge of late, because there is a growing demand of herbal medicine in the world, and because of which there is an extensive resource crunch. Now, these are something which belong to a category of replenishable resource. So it is not that we'll run out of them, but there is something called sustainable harvesting that we need to do. The entire process of harvesting, gathering, collecting material from the wild has to be done in a more professional and a more sustained manner, so that this continues for eons. Not that your berries or your fruits on the trees will not grow back, But there are, issues like natural calamities and all of that. So there are seasons when suddenly there is a, dearth of material because of the acres together of plantations going dry. But the fact is that if it is done in a sustained manner, we have enough and more for the world. And we are very, very endowed with very many green belts in India.
So can we get to see something which is
Oh yes, I
visible?
I can certainly show you some raw materials. Raw materials that we commonly use in Ayurveda. For example, this particular root that you're seeing here is something called Shatavari, and very interestingly, in Kannada, it has the name of Halava Makkala Taya Gida, which means that it is a tree that can, or a shrub that can bear many children. And this is Ashwagandha, which is very, very popular world over. Again, here this is a cultivated species because of the growing demands of Ashwagandha. This has now been taken on large scale cultivation. What you have here is ginger, dried ginger again, which is one of the very, very popular ingredients in many of the Ayurvedic formulations. And what you have here is Glycyrrhiza glabra, what is commonly known as licorice. And licorice is an artificial sweetener also. Very good as an antiviral. In fact, a lot of research world over is being done on its antiviral properties. Like I said, we use various kinds of things. So these are all, roots, and this is a rhizome. And what you have here is a wood called Devdar. It's Cedrus deodar. That's the botanical name for it. And then you have some fruits, like you have the long pepper, and you have the amla, which is dried amla, and of course the leaf of senna. Now, senna, as you know, even in allopathy, it is used commonly as a laxative and approved. It's a part of the pharmacopoeia also, the British pharmacopoeia as well as the Indian pharmacopoeia, because they isolate senosides from this, which is used as a laxative. So various kinds of herbs are used in manufacturing of Ayurvedic products, and it takes a great deal of effort to get them right, get the species right, get them all in the right season, also clean them and utilize them in the formula.
Interesting to see, Rajesh. Ashwagandha, for example. I'm a daily user of ashwagandha, and it was so nice for me to see the raw form of it. So, the first question I had was, is there a shelf life for storing some of these raw materials?
Nice question. Yeah, definitely there is a shelf life, in the sense that, these are all from earth, and anything that's coming from earth is obviously prone to insect attack. It's prone to all kinds of storage conditions and all, fungus and all of that. So we need to store them right. But then, having said that, if it's stored right, the crude form is the best way to store it, because the minute you start reducing size, like you make it a powder or you make it into a product, the shelf life, the minute it is disintegrated and powdered, it becomes lower. And then when it's converted into a product again, depending on what form of the product it is converted to, we have different shelf lives for that. So, and that is also done according to the Ayush department. They have studied and they have given us certain expiries for most of these products. Like if it gets converted into a wine, then it has a long shelf life of close to 10 years. But certain other fat-rich products, maybe 3 years. Yeah.
So, one very interesting thing that I saw. Can you tell us a little about this balance? Looks very interesting.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is a balance that was used by my grandfather. It is an age-old balance, and interestingly, it still works. Now the fact is that we no longer do productions on that scale, so we've just kept it as a piece, as a showpiece. But yeah, we would love to keep it that way and not part with it, because it kind of sentimental. Yeah.
Right. What do you do next? You have these raw materials.
Yeah, so like I said, once we have the various raw materials formulated, and there are huge number of formulas and huge number of texts. Just to give you an idea, there are about 51 textbooks that have been authorized by the department. Then there are the pharmacopoeias and the formularies which have been published by the department, and all of these have various formulations. So the minute we gather the herbs as per the formula, we take them for size reduction. So it is disintegrated either into a fine powder or a coarse powder, pretty much for the next process. So if the next process is decoction making, then we powder it coarse. If it needs to go into a fine powder form, then we powder it fine. So that's what happens.
So let's go and see that.
Oh yeah, sure.
So Rajesh, we saw what happens inside, but what really happens?
Well, like I said, once the formulation is gathered, it has to go for size reduction. And depending on what is the next process, the size is reduced into either a powder or something like a coarse powder for the decoction making or to be used in another product. And like I was mentioning as we were chatting, this entire science of Ayurveda is so amazing that as history shows us, Ayurveda actually dates back around 3,500 years ago, when the Rig Veda was actually written down. And whatever has been mentioned as attributes to certain herbs, like for example, very commonly ashwagandha, is known to be a nervine tonic, it's known to be an adaptogen. And all of those attributes which were actually mentioned by whatever observation that they made 3,000 years ago holds good even today, which is remarkable. I mean, you tell me, when our grandparents used to speak about good quality rice, good quality dal, and all the tasty vegetables that we don't find today, they are talking of a time frame of only 30, 40, 50 years. And here we are talking about 3,500 years of history, and we are giving the plants exactly the same attributes. Isn't that amazing? I mean, so when people say that it is not scientific, it is hard to believe. And it's, I think they should just understand this, that if nature has preserved its bounty and its and all that it has in nature so well, to give us all the riches and all the good that it had 3,500 years ago, that's an amazing bit of time.
So I think, so even from a process standpoint, you're saying that you have a lot of scientific evidence in terms of what was done in the past, and you kind of continue to follow that, like you spoke about ashwagandha, for example, right?
Yes. Actually, again, a very interesting question. So there are two parts to it. I personally believe that it is best to keep Ayurveda, one portion of Ayurveda. Look, research and development is not something that can be stopped. So you continue to develop, you continue to research, you continue to bring out new formulations. But all of that is something which is new, which is developing of late. What has been done in Ayurveda for eons should be preserved as something that is basically Ayurveda. And anything that adds on to that should be, part of modern research. What has of late happened is people start piggyback riding on the safety tag of Ayurveda by doing, research for 10 years or 15 years. I don't think, in my opinion, it's not the best practice.
Yeah, so
Because I would prefer two different platforms. One is, the research and R&D and all that, and herbal stuff developed by research and development. And then you have the tradition. So something that is traditional, and if you look at it, the last year of this pandemic, it has, been proven to be as effective as any other modern drug. So I think we should leave the traditional part untouched. And definitely, research and development is always there.
yeah, I think it's very well said. You already have proven for so many. I mean, imagine you talk about 3 million years
Yeah.
ago, and it's proven and still, still works.
Still
so
works.
I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the beauty of it.
So thank you, Rajesh. So what are you going to show us next?
We could go into one of the other sections and look at how we do the processing of other material, like either a massage oil or a lehium.
Oh, wow. Rajesh, this smells very good here. So what's cooking there?
Well, what we are processing here is something called Amlaka Rasayana, and Amlaka Rasayana is basically made out of gooseberries. Now, these are typically lehiams. Lehiams is a category of Ayurvedic medicines which belongs to the Chawanprash kind of thing. When I say Chawanprash, it is only because people relate very easily to Chawanprash. And Chawanprash typically is a lehiam. And there are many lehiams that have been mentioned in Ayurvedic texts. What we are manufacturing here is Amlaka Rasayana, which is purely made out of gooseberries. And that is why the name Amlaka. Most of the rasayanas that we make are very, very rich in, a lot of spices. So a lot of the rasayanas do have saffron, cardamom, cloves, cinnamon, and even your so basically rich in spices and a lot of costly ingredients. And the principle of a lehiam is that it is fat rich. So there is a lot of ghee in it. Okay, and the reason why Ayurveda has made these different categories of products, like you have a Arishtam, which is a wine, you have a lehiam, which is a confection, which is fat rich, then you have the plain powder, and then you have syrups, and then you have tablets and pills. All of this has been defined in Ayurveda for the primary reason that you need vehicles to carry certain medicines for its properties. So a person would be given a lehiam depending on his body constitution. He would be given a wine or an Arishtam based on the body constitution. So the physician is at liberty to choose what product he actually wants to give to get the best results that he wants to see. So that is the reason why so many categories are made. The same ashwagandha, for example, you make capsules, you make powder, you make lehiam, you make syrup, you also make an oil. And that herb, in its various forms of delivery, gives various results. So that is the beauty of Ayurveda. Yeah.
You preempted my question because I have taken ashwagandha in different forms, so I was just going to ask you that.
That is what it comes to, and that is why your physician is so important. Ayurveda today, unfortunately, has become very, very over the counter and generic. But if you want best results, it is always good to consult a good physician who can then give you the right combination of products. Just reading up on the net or reading up a book and then deciding for yourself that ashwagandha works well for me may not be the best solution. So, and probably that's what then tends people to lose faith in the system, because they self-medicate and then they said, oh, ashwagandha didn't work for me. But actually, they're probably taking the wrong stuff.
That's true.
And in the wrong form. So,
It's all natural, is it? You spoke about
absolutely.
spices.
Yeah.
So spices, ghee.
All natural. And the fact is that we have to source our material very carefully. We have to source it from, and not only that, a lot of people think that doing Ayurveda is very easy, but right from the time sourcing it to getting it to our factory, cleaning it, and then using it in the product is time consuming and laborious.
And you said you use a lot of natural stuff while making this. See, one of the things, even we see even in a lot of food that has to be kept for a longer time, there is a need for adding preservatives, right? So you don't add any preservative, or how do you ensure that you for the longevity of any particular formulation?
Good question again. Now, the lehyams that we make are all without preservatives. So the very reason why, again, Ayurveda and look at the thought process of the people who were working on Ayurveda, or rather developing the science in those years, that they actually looked to make preparations without preservatives because there was no chemical concept in those days. And there is a natural preservative, so to say, which is added, which is your borax. Okay, and it is a naturally occurring mineral, and it is added in very small quantities. But other than that, it is the fat which preserves. It is the ghee which preserves. If you look at syrups, it is the sugar. Of course, in syrups we do add a little bit of the food preservative called sodium benzoate, and that is only off late because you need to give extended shelf life. But Ayurveda as a concept never developed with shelf life. The aswas arishtas that were made, for example, they generate alcohol. So the self-generated alcohol itself is a preservative. You don't need a separate preservative there. So that's how the science is. Even the powders, we don't add preservatives. They are preserving, and of course shelf life is much smaller, but then it is good for that shelf life. Yeah.
So, can I get to see the final product?
Oh yeah, that's why I got this, Amlaka Rasayana. So this is what it is, and this is how the product will finally look. And just as a demonstration, I would like to show you what exactly a lehyam is. And there is a textbook definition of a lehyam which says that you should be able to roll it, in your 2 fingers, and it should not be sticky. So that is how a lehyam should be, and I would like to demonstrate it to you. So this is the bottle. I'm just opening it up in my hands, and this is it. So the finishing has to be as good as this. You should be able to roll it into a ball, probably a marble-sized ball, and then you should be able to leave your thumb impression on it.
Wow.
This is the actual textbook consistency of a lehyam. If obviously a lot of the manufacturers are not making it this way. This has been our specialty for decades. Yeah.
This is interesting what you said about making it, the finish. So then I'm curious about how do you ensure that you deliver first of all, make a quality product, and deliver and also maintain this quality.
Starting from the raw materials, the quality has to be given paramount importance. Sourcing, so we have our regular suppliers who give us material. We bring in the material, we have to check whether it's the right botanical species, and then we have to clean them, and then storage after that, and process it further. Each and every point of this, we have so to say, somebody to sign it off and check quality. We also have an in-house laboratory where we do some basic checks. And these are all, well documented now, because you have something called the Ayurvedic Pharmacopoeia, where they tell you that a particular raw material has to be of a certain specification, of a certain standard. And only when it matches those standards do we actually consume it for any of the production that we do. And even in the processing, like I just demonstrated to you, if a particular product has to finish in a particular way, there are definitions of that in Ayurveda itself. It's not that there is some modern connotation to the whole thing. The fact that I told you that the lehyam should be able to roll into a ball and one should be able to leave a thumb impression is something which is mentioned in the text, centuries ago. So they were very, very clear, and there are instances where they have mentioned very clearly as to in which season the herbs should be picked. Although that's becoming more and more difficult with the global demand growing. But yes, we, at least to the extent of it being the right herb and it being clean, devoid of insects, devoid of any kind of earthy material, all of that is done, and once that is cleared, we take it up for manufacturing. And there are, of course, we have a complete ERP which runs the formulation, has checkpoints, so that we understand if at a certain stage the material is not processed correctly, it should be stopped. So we take care of that and ensure that we give the best quality. Yeah.
Very well explained, Rajesh, especially in terms of the whole process, because it's a whole manufacturing process managed by quality. And of course, I did see here how well it is managed and maintained. But since you spoke about Lehiam, here I see that you're making this Amlaka Kashayan, Rasayan, sorry. So, do you have a process in place which says that, okay, I finished this Amlaka, so is there something else that I'll have to do? Or, do you randomly follow? What is that is followed from a process standpoint?
Yeah, good question again. So, like I said, we have various types of preparations. So, Lehiam is one preparation. You have the wines, then you have the tailas, then you have the syrups, and then you have the ghees. There are medicated ghees also. And then you have the powders. So, all of these are different categories of Ayurvedic preparations that we make. And it's all market demand based. So, if there is, we have an ERP which is in place. So, we know what is the billing that has been done in a particular month, what is the demand, what is the cycle time for that product. So all of that is calculated and the batches are planned. So we have a very definite production plan for the month, which tells us that, okay, we need these many batches of Amlaka, these many batches of Ashwagandha, these many batches of some other thing, and we plan it like that. So the entire raw material sourcing, procurement, supply chain, everything is tuned, and it's all thanks to the ERP that we use, and it's an in-house ERP. So it's very adapted to the kind of work that we are doing.
One last personal question from my side before we move to the next section. Last year was very difficult for the whole world, right? With COVID, and especially here at Nanjangud, especially in Karnataka, it started here. So how did you all manage? And because this is such a labor-intensive industry, right?
Yeah, very true. In fact, Nanjangud was the epicenter because we had one of our industries here being affected. Is that yes, it is a labor-intensive unit, and we had to shut down because we ourselves were taken by surprise when this whole pandemic started. But sooner or later we realized that, look, we can come back, and gradually we did ask for permissions from the concerned departments, and we started working with, they allowed, at a point in time, they allowed 50% employment to come back. And we slowly started because we were having demand for our products, because these are all, Ayurveda, again, globally kind of established itself during this pandemic because of the popularity of its abilities to boost immunity and things like that. So that was something that we had to cater to also. So we got back, limited staff and workers, and then, they helped us tide over that situation. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad at all. And then what we did was the Ayush department came up with a formulation which said that called Ayush Quat, and this was meant to boost immunity. And in fact, our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi also propagated the use of this in every house. So we made that formulation and we gave it to all our workers also. So they were also using this formulation every day, and I think they've all been healthy. We all got tested also, and we were all found to be negative. So I think that's further support of Ayurveda.
In fact, that was my question, because I know during these times, a lot of people were talking on Twitter, and like you said, especially in India, Ayush was also promoting a lot of, especially because it brings in immunity. So I was just curious, because how did you manage this whole production setup, during this time? But I'm glad to know that you were still able to manage.
How we make our oils. You've seen how we make our Lehiams and all that. We can also go to the pills and capsuling sections, and you can. One of the activities that we also have, one of the kinds of products that we do is pills. And what the ladies here are rolling today is Kanchanara Guggudu. Now again, these are hand-rolled pills. Okay, now there is a certain, a certain sanctity to doing it hand-rolled. The same thing is also punchable in the machine, and you can tablet it. But there are many physicians who even today believe that a hand-rolled pill is the best in terms of efficacy. So what they're making here is Kanchana Ragugulu. And we also make other kinds of pills here like Amodini and Kasturi Matre. Our Amodini is a throat lozenge which is quite popular. A lot of famous singers and songsters have been using it. And Kasturi Matre is a prophylactic pill for the infants, so that they don't get a cold or a cough and develop fever. And also that has been doing so well for these many decades, since grandfather started. It was one of his first few products that he made. That is also hand rolled, partly machine rolled and then separated by hand, just to get the sizing right. So even these are actually sized by a machine, and they're groove cut, and then they're rolled so that there is not much variation in the sizing, because after all the dosage is important.
Right. So very interesting, because like you mentioned about Amodini, I can't leave the house without having Amodini in my purse. So Amodini is a must carry for me. So because I saw so much of activities that happens here at this Advaitashala, and also you have so many things that are consumed by users, right? Users, patients, so many people. So one curious question is, are you bound by any regulatory bodies, and how do they evaluate you?
So, interesting question again. A lot of people do believe that Ayurveda is not regulated, but that's not true. We have the Ayush ministry now, which under again the Narendra Modi government was formulated, and Ayush as a system is very, very well regulated now. Ayush stands for Ayurveda, Yoga, Unani, Siddha and Homeopathy, and this as an alternative system of medicine. All of them are grouped together under the Ministry of Ayush, and there are regulatory departments all across. So you have the state level and the central level departments, and they have a very stringent regulatory mechanism. So we have inspections every 6 months, and there are drug inspectors who come and look at our processes, look at the way we are keeping things, right from raw material to finished products, and every activity, every part of manufacturing is looked into. We are also obligated to keep something called a batch manufacturing record, pretty much like the allopathic system, where start to finish every process is documented correctly, and also assures quality. So we do keep reference samples, we do keep all of that as a backup, because if by chance there is any market complaint, we should know where we went wrong. So it is completely regulated, and it is wrong of people to believe that it's a free-for-all system, and something that is done at home, which is not so well regulated and all of that. I think it is good for people to know that we have the complete regulation. Not only in the Ayush system, but we also have something now called the biodiversity law, which regulates the herbal usage that we have. So we are very tightly governed. I don't think it is easy or it is just possible for somebody to make something in their backyard and sell it.
Because one important thing in this whole process, since you said that this is also a regulated industry on sustainability, right? Because waste management, because there's so much of waste that gets generated as part of the whole manufacturing process. So do you have a defined process for managing that?
So most of the waste that we generate is solid in nature, because whatever water and all of that is consumed in the product itself, because you make wines, or you make syrups, or you make whatever. So we need decoctions. So there is little that goes as waste in terms of liquid waste management, but solid waste management is there, because you have a lot of herbage. Now this herbage that we produce here is all taken to our farm. We have about 10 acres of farmland where we are growing some medicinal plants, and we have a beautiful rose garden. So we take it to the farmland there and convert it to organic manure. So all of this gets converted. We have huge manure pits. We put them there and we convert it into manure and use it in our own farm. So that is how we are managing our waste right now.
When I was speaking to Ram Gopal, he was talking to me about how they would go along with B.V. Pandit to the rose garden. Interesting, there is a whole recycle of even waste that keeps happening. Rajesh, thank you so much. I know there is so much to cover, much more in this Advaityashala. We just saw the tip of the iceberg, but it is very overwhelming and I felt extremely good, very heartfelt by seeing the entire process of medicine making. And like you really mentioned, it is not of yesterday. There is a history of 3 million years, right? And still it continues to be popular. And today what I saw at the Satvaidyashala is something that I relate to myself, because there are so many things that I use on a day-to-day basis without even knowing the history behind making it. I'm sure all my viewers in Digital Wellness will be benefited by what you just said. What we saw today in the making of Ayurvedic medicines was just a bit on the iceberg. There is so much. In fact, when I was speaking to Rajesh and Mr. Ram Gopal, they told me about what is that? Shiva Gutika. So there's so much of history on how Lord Shiva also made for his son Lord Ganesha. We should and we will cover it some other time. But thank you so much for watching Digital Wellness. Do like, subscribe, and hear this wonderful story of the Satvaidyashala. Thank you.
Thank you.